So, hello, Paul. Hi, and I just really want to say how nice it is to be here with you, and thank you for agreeing to do this interview. It's very special to. So, I've prepared some questions, and let's just see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to start with just if you could tell us a little bit about growing up, and because I know my old childhood was. I was brought up with quite a religious background. I wonder, what was it like for you? Was there a spiritual element, a religious element in your family, or?
I don't remember there being any spiritual element in my childhood. And I don't remember being drawn to spirituality at all, really. I was much more interested in playing a lot of sport and being outdoors, and I had no sense of sort of connection with spirit or God. I didn't feel that as a child. One thing I do remember is that I actually used to very much enjoy religious education lessons at school. I remember learning about Hinduism and learning about Buddhism and learning about Christianity, and that I enjoyed very much.
Right.
So that was the only sort of formal connection I had with any kind of spiritual understanding. And then my father, he remarried when I was about 16, I think, 16 or 17. And his partner, my stepmother, she is a very spiritual woman. And she was the first one who I began to have some sort of connection with spirituality through her. She was involved with a group, and sometimes I would just look at some of her books, but I still didn't feel a strong calling towards it. And it wasn't until I was probably about 19 or 20 that I began to seek. Something happened in my life, and it changed my life from one day to the next. And all of the things that I felt was so safe or so certain in my life, they all got taken away really from one day to the next. And I began sort of seeking for something else. And my search, it took me through, I looked at Christian Science, I looked at various different sort of Christian mystic groups. But finally, I came to find Buddhism. And I remember when I found Buddhism, I immediately felt a kinship with it. And I immediately felt that it wasn't so much about beliefs and about learning, but it was about it just felt right to me. Something felt right to me. And I ended up spending the best part of probably around 15 years as a practicing Buddhist. And I also lived in a Buddhist community for some of that time. And that I feel was a very important time of of just learning about not just about Buddhism, but about myself. And I learned obviously how to meditate. I learned how to contemplate some of the deeper things in life. And now when I look back at that time, I can see that the central tenets of Buddhism, the emptiness of the I, impermanence, and the meditation on loving kindness, all these kinds of things, they're all very central to what I'm sharing myself now. So Buddhism has been very helpful and is very helpful for me. But there came a point where the kind of formality of studying Buddhism, I was on a study program, we'd do studying 2 days a week and all this kind of thing, that dropped away for me, and I didn't feel to continue with it in that way. In fact, I have to say, there actually came a time where if I opened up a book and I started reading about it, I actually started to get headaches and stuff. So there came a point where I left it. Yeah.
So that was quite a strong turning. Like you said, okay, there was no spiritual element, but yet something happened there at whatever, 18, 19 or something, that really started a search in you. Huh? Okay.
It showed me that for all of us, no matter how stable our lives are, and how um, how much we feel that life is going a certain way. It showed me very clearly that at any point that can change very, very quickly, and almost it can change to the point where you couldn't go back. And at that point, I was actually going down a bit of a different route in my life, and it was almost like something had to happen to wake me up out of that. And something did happen, and it took me away from that.
There's a sense of, to move from where you were into a Buddhist community, quite a sense of totality about that somewhere. And somewhere I feel that's kind of, you've got that totality because of who you are today. Do you feel that was just I don't know, something in you that's like...
I wanted to try it out. I wanted to try it out, and I was spending some time at this Buddhist community in Brighton, and they were moving from a kind of a smaller building to a much bigger building. And it was actually, we were spending a lot of time renovating the building, and there had been a lot of squatters there, and it was a real mess. And we spent probably about a year renovating it and cleaning it up. And when the time came to open it up to people who wanted to live there, I thought I'd just go and try it out and see how it was for me. And it was pretty rough living, we didn't have, there might have been a little bit of hot water, but not much. We were sharing a kitchen, about probably 40 of us, and it wasn't luxurious living at all.
Pioneering days.
Yeah, pioneering days. The centre's still there in Brighton, and occasionally I pass by there, and it's it's a beautiful centre now, but it's come a long way from the old days. But as it was in the old days, it was quite tough there, and I lived there for a few years, and because it was right in the middle of the town centre as well. Anyone could walk in at any time, and so we would often, you didn't need a TV, and you didn't need any. It was all happening there, right in front of your eyes. And I was still a school teacher at that time, so I used to go to my job as a school teacher during the day. Then I'd get home and I'd be involved with the running of the Buddhist centre, either going to an evening class or studying, or we had to do some tasks around the centre, some cleaning and all these things. So I had quite a full life at that time as well. And in fact, they often asked me if I would teach some classes there. But I never did. I didn't feel to do that. So I was just kind of there as a layperson. I never was a teacher at the Buddhist Centre.
But to the Buddhist practice living there was morning meditation. There was a kind of a routine to your day, I guess.
Very structured.
Very structured.
And there were a lot of people living there who were kind of full-time monks or nuns as well. And they were on what was called a teacher training program, where they'd study for 3 or 4 hours every morning. And then there'd be a kind of puja, which is a chanted meditation, in the afternoon. And then in the evening, there'd be a class where the general public would come. And often in the morning, there'd be kind of some kind of practices around prostrations. It was very formal and quite hardcore, I would say. Quite hardcore in terms of, spiritual practice and what was expected of you if you lived there. And a kind of a discipline with it. Very different to what I'm doing now, which is much more, for me, much more natural. But what I would say is probably that time living in the Buddhist community and that time that I spent there, I would say was wonderful groundwork for preparing me for a later awakening, which shifted me much more out of the mental personal identity, and it shifted me much more into presence and into being. And maybe without all of those years of the Buddhist study and the Buddhist meditation and the Buddhist discipline, maybe that wouldn't have happened. I don't know.
So I mean, that's interesting, because you say the groundwork was kind of laid there. So what laid the groundwork? was it the daily meditations? I guess it was Vipassana or the pujas. And
we would go through a cycle. It was Tibetan Buddhism, and we would go through a cycle of 21 meditations, and this cycle was called Lam Rim, and it was a 21 meditation cycle. So day 1, day 2, day 3, and you would go through these 21 meditations, and then when you got to the end of the 21 meditation, you go back to the beginning. So you do these. So constantly you're going through this cycle of 21 meditations, and that was supposed to be the daily practice. This is what you must do, regardless if you don't have time to do anything else. You should do your Lam Rim, your daily practice. At the same point, there were a lot of other practices there, like some tantric meditative practices, which were much more esoteric, and much more complicated, where you began to visualize certain colors and certain deities and this kind of thing. But even then, my feeling was always kind of just stay with the absolute basics of spirituality, because what I've always felt is that if spirituality is to be true and natural, it cannot be some secret techniques and some very complex techniques. I've always had a feeling for the naturalness and the ordinary. In one way, the ordinariness. I'm very much for just being one with the ordinariness of life, finding the beauty in the ordinariness, because ego can also come into the spiritual realm, and ego can very much thrives on specialness and secret practices. This can become, the ego can come into that, but ego is not that into ordinariness. In fact, the thing that the ego probably dislikes more than anything is ordinariness. It wants to be somehow special. And the basic tenets of Buddhism I have found to be very applicable all the way through. Yeah, to just find the stillness of being, the stillness of the heart. But what has happened, as with many religions, is that the basic teachings have kind of become much more, I don't know, maybe more complex as people have written more about them and studied more about them and learnt more about them. And the path of Advaita, actually, is a stripping away and a coming back into the absolute simplicity of the self. And in the old days, I was learning a lot and having to remember a lot. Now, not learning or remembering anything, just being as I am. And that, in one way, that is a great relief.
Yeah. In just to go back to those Buddhist times, was there would you have called that a search for freedom, enlightenment at that point in you? Is that what you were looking for?
I don't think I ever thought about I was seeking enlightenment or I was seeking the self or anything. I never thought about that. I just wanted to be, to find some peace in myself, and I wanted to find a kind of system of living which made sense to me and which was congruent with my own self. And in fact, it wasn't until I met Mooji, when I met Mooji in India, some years after leaving the Buddhist group, that I'd even really heard of someone speaking about freedom and about enlightenment. Well, Mooji's not really speaking, he doesn't really use the word enlightenment, but about freedom and about self-realization and about discovering the self. He was the first person I'd ever heard speak about that. I'd heard Eckhart Tolle speak a lot about presence and about the being, but I'd never heard someone speak more about even going beyond that. So that took a little bit of time for it to kind of get into my bloodstream and really begin to contemplate what he was talking about. Because before I met Mooji, I had already recognized presence in myself. I already knew what the difference between heart presence and mind. For me, that was already very clear. But it seemed that he was speaking about going a stage beyond that. And he was speaking about recognizing what is even aware of both the heart presence and of the kind of the false self, the mind-made self. And I ended up spending a few winters out in India with Muji, and I would go to satsang every day with him, and I would listen to what he was sharing, and then also I would go and sit in Brahmana ashram and go and sit on the mountain there, and it was, you know, kind of, you couldn't have had a better setting and a better opportunity for that. We had 5 or 6 weeks of satsang every day. And I recognized at some point what he was speaking about, and I recognized the simplicity of it. And at the same time as recognizing the simplicity of that, there is also a great falling away of what we're not. So there is the recognition of what we are, and a great falling away of what we're not. And the falling away of what we are not, that is a kind of, that's ongoing. It's ongoing as the sense of, as the sense of the false I is seen through more and more and more. And something is just falling away, and something is within us is just coming more to just a place of natural rest and natural simplicity and natural silence. And it's not a state where you've got to remember or learn, but it's much more just a natural emptying out, a natural discharging. And it's coming not from a lot of practice, but more just very clear insight and an earnestness. Earnestness meaning, you know, something inside you has got to fully giving yourself to this. Because if you're still feeling like, well, this is important to me, but I've still got a lot of other things that are important, then the other things are always going to take precedent over, you know, over one's search. But if you've come to the point where you feel, no, this is what I want, and this is what my calling is for, then you will come to the point where you're able to use whatever is going on in your life for this. And you don't need to change your life. You don't need to get rid of anything in your life. But somehow there must be the feeling that, you know, what my life really stands for is this. And then you will see that, you know, good things, bad things, indifferent things, all of it, if you know how to use it, all of it you can use. Yeah.
To those of us, and I include myself in this, who have come to if I can say, a knowledge of presence, but come in and out of it, and especially when I'm with people or at work, and it seems to be the daily practice to remember to come back. How did it come? Because you said you knew presence before you met Muji.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? And when you say you knew presence, are you saying that it had somehow come to a stable place in you? How did that come about?
Yeah. Well, what happened for me was, in my mid-30s, I got very sick. I got very ill, and I ended up spending a long time in bed. And at that time, I couldn't really speak, and I couldn't really move. And I would just have one friend who would come and just hold my hand every day. I was just lying there in bed, and I was basically having a breakdown. I was having a breakdown. And basically, every day I was thinking, how am I gonna, how can I end this? I was feeling suicidal, and I just didn't want to carry on with my life like this. I couldn't see any way out of it. And right in the middle of that, at one point where I just felt like, you know, this was coming to an end for me, I felt this. I just felt this crack. All I can describe it as is a kind of break right in the middle of my chest. And it was almost like one of my ribs broke, and I felt this physical crack. It was like a crack, and I felt this sense of deep peace come through me. It was almost like something had broken, and out of this break, some sense of deep peace just came through. And it wasn't like a peace that I had experienced before, like in my meditations or through some effort. It wasn't like that. It was a peace that had just kind of released itself. It had been there, but it had released itself. And as I recognized that sense of peace, and as I began to fully honor that sense of peace, the more I honored it, the more I realized that there was a difference between this sense of peace and my mind. I saw that they were two different things, and that when I was able to somehow keep the focus or keep the attention or keep my awareness at one with this sense of heart peace, then there was something very beautiful was happening. And if at any point I forgot about that and I again got caught back in my mind, I saw again I was in a lot of pain and I was in a lot of self-created drama. So it became very clear to me that it was my own mind that was causing me all of the trouble. And that really all I needed to do was to keep my attention here as much as possible and just be one with it. And I basically, this is when I was 35, so that was 15 years ago now. I'm 50 now. And so there was a period of probably about, I would say probably about 3 or 4 years there, from probably mid to late 30s, where I didn't do very much, and I was just being with this. I was just being with this, and I would just sit in parks or go for walks or just sit quietly and just be quiet, be still, stay with this. And I remember very clearly that there came to a point where the sense of what I call presence, which is this heart peace, the sense of presence became much stronger than the mind. And there came a point, a kind of tipping point, where the sense of self just kind of tipped into the state of presence, and it's always stayed in the state of presence. It doesn't mean that the mind doesn't come. It doesn't mean that sometimes I wouldn't get caught up in personal things. Of course that would happen, but there was a much more stable ground inside me, and I'd sort of come to the point where I knew that a radical shift in consciousness had taken place. I knew beyond any kind of learned understanding or any study or any course or any, I knew that this was a radical shift in consciousness. And at the same time as that happened, I also was reading The Power of Now. Someone gave me a copy of The Power of Now. I've still got it here now. I've still got it with me. And The Power of Now, I read that a lot, and I saw that basically the very similar thing had happened to Eckhart, in terms of the false I had become so unbearable and so painful that it had almost burst. It's almost like a balloon that you fill it up too much and it burst. And in that bursting, all of a sudden there was space and comfort and a kind of stillness was there. I also, at this point then, became interested to travel a little bit, maybe by the time I was about 40. And this was when I started to go to India, and this is where I met Muji. And, Muji spoke about going beyond presence. And there was part of me that was fascinated by that, and part of me that was frustrated by that. Because I felt like I'd found this, and I felt like this was it. Mm-hmm. But when I listened to him, and when I contemplated what he was saying, I couldn't disagree with it. Because he was saying that even the sense of heart presence, at some points it goes, but there is something here that sees the coming and going even of heart presence. He also said in the dream state, when we're dreaming, heart presence is not there. Maybe you're dreaming all kinds of things. And in the deep sleep state, nothing is there other than this witnessing consciousness. So, yeah, I felt the truth of what he was saying on a level, even if I didn't understand, I felt the truth of it. And I spent a few years there just being in satsang with him. And I probably only had, in the years that I spent going to satsang with Muji, I probably only had about 3 or 4 conversations with him. But they were all very helpful. And also, I got so much from just being in satsang and listening to other people's questions and what other people were asking. And I remember that, I was I used to go into this kind of deep, quiet state in myself that, after the satsang, I'd hear everyone speaking and saying, oh, I'm going to lunch here, where are you going to lunch? And I'll meet you later and all this. And I just couldn't move. I couldn't move. And I was just sitting there. I was just very quiet and just sitting there. And I could then hear all of the assistants putting all the chairs away. And so probably, 400 or 500 people there, and I'm clearing the whole place up. I was just sitting there. And all of a sudden someone come and say, time to go, time to go. I look round. There's no one else there at all. No one else there. There was a time I wasn't interested in social interaction. I wasn't against it, but I felt like, no, I really wanted to honor this. And I'm always saying to people who come to my meetings now that if you're touched by something, then honor it. If something really touches you and something really lands inside you, then just give that time and space to kind of flower and blossom inside you, because very quickly we go back into kind of the personal I, and then it's just lost, and it's a spiritual memory, or it's something that happened once upon a time, but now it's gone. And so, although truth is simple, and although truth is ever present, to come to a place of absolute clarity of that, it requires some. If I say effort, it's not quite the right word, but some loyalty to that. It requires some loyalty that we really, we're fully loyal to that calling. And, many people come in and out of our lives, and many situations change. And in my own life, I've seen this happen so much. But one thing I've seen is that the recognition of this and the unchanging nature of this, it doesn't change. And for those who are interested in this, we come to love and respect that, not as an object separate from us, but we come to love and respect that as our inmost self. And then, we're just something, in my own case, something just become quiet and silent and still. And there's just a joy of just honoring that silence. Now, if someone is in the mind looking at that, then that is maybe looks very different to the experience of being one with that without identity with mind. Many times people are looking at this from the mind state, saying, well, no, there doesn't seem much there. But there's still some interest in what the mind is saying. And ultimately, this is an invitation into emptiness and into pure contentment, pure peace and contentment. And at the same point, there's still a space for emotions to arise. There's still a space for feelings to arise. There's still a space for our humanness to arise. But the identity has shifted from the kind of personal I to the presence I, and then from the presence I to the witnessing consciousness I. All of them we could call I. All of them we could place our I on any one of those. But in inquiry, we're coming to find which is the most consistent, which is the one that is unchanging, which is the one that is always here. and to know ourselves as that. Because unless and until there is a kind of radical shift in consciousness in us, then we're going to feel like, I had it and then it's gone. I just need to practice more and work more. But actually, the truth is, we just need absolute clear understanding and self-knowledge.
But that understanding can be, you can understand it, but it's. You mentioned recently how what we need is a 180-degree shift, because we look from the person, and we can look at presence, and we can kind of look for awareness.
Yeah.
And that's not it. That kind of fools us in thinking we've got something.
Yeah.
But the shift is the other way around.
Yeah.
We've got to look from presence, from the place of source itself.
Yeah.
And that's like, wow.
Yeah.
How you know?
Yeah. Well, the incredible thing is, the incredible thing about this is it is already that way around.
Yeah.
But because something has got so fixed on a certain point, it's like our kind of reference point is so hardwired into a certain point inside us that we feel like that is where we are and that is who we are. But just through clear seeing, clear observation, and a kind of consistent returning. It's not a returning, but it's a returning. It feels like a returning. Ultimately, that you're going to see you're not returning, because there will come a certain point where you see that you're never moving. You can only return to something if you've left it. But there will come a certain point you see you can't even leave it. But nevertheless, experientially, because we have the feeling and the experience that we have left it, then for a while we have the feeling that we're returning to it. And we leave it and we return to it. We leave it and return to it. But ultimately we're going to come to see that what we are has never left and can never return. It simply is always as it is. But if there is still some sense of personal identification there, the person will not accept it. And the person will say, no, it's not true. So it is not going to happen by effort, like, okay, now I'm going to stay there. I'm going to stay there. Can't do it. So it must be that there is a clear understanding. And the clear understanding begins to take place when, if you can be around somebody who has recognized this clearly, not as an experience, not as some passing spiritual mood, not as just as a very sober, very clear, very unchanging. It's beyond an experience even. Whatever I say about it isn't quite right. If you can find somebody like that, who can continuously point you back to yourself, who can continuously remind you, no, this is what you are. You're not that. You're not that. And if you are able just to follow the pointings and clarify and confirm, then you have every possibility of losing what you are not. Because this isn't a gain. You don't gain anything, but you just lose what you are not. And in the losing of what you are not, your natural state is peace. Your natural state is a sense of contentment. Your natural state is a sense of quiet joy. It is. But if we are holding on to the false I, then that can only ever visit peace. It can only ever taste peace a little bit. Because the truth is, the false I is the thing that is causing the trouble. The false I is pretending to look for peace, but at the same time, it is the one that disturbs the peace.
It's the crux of the problem.
Yeah.
So it fools us all.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest I think sometimes I get when I do that, that's like emptying exercise. I could call it maybe an emptying exercise. I just feel just everything, just let go, everything, everything. But then I think, but who's doing this exercise?
Yeah.
It's the closest I get to perhaps back to that place of source or awareness.
Yeah.
But there's still somebody there.
Yes. Yeah. When you say there's somebody there, what is that somebody there? What does that mean?
Well, I guess it's still a sense of I. Now, what that I is, maybe it's not the personal I, but there's a sense of still a sense of I.
Yeah. Does that sense of I have any form?
That one, no.
No. So it doesn't have any form. No. Doesn't. Then if it doesn't have any form, doesn't have any shape, any size, any location, yeah, it's here. Yeah.
Always here.
Yes. Yeah. In that case, you have to get a taste for the formless self, not through effort again, but just seeing that whatever the I is identifying as, whatever it's identifying as, if that sense of identity is merged with form, is got something about it, like if it's got some kind of feeling about it, or so, is it an energy, or is it what is this sense of I appearing as? And whatever it's appearing as for you, then something just become very quiet and just look and see what perceives that. What is aware of that? And that which is aware of the form I, does that have any form? And what we're going to come to see is that there is something here which we cannot say what it is, we cannot grasp hold of it, but just through clear understanding and clear insight, we are going to have to come to the point where we admit that we must be that. We can't be other than that. Sometimes I was giving this example now of the Russian doll. That inside the person is presence, and inside presence is the witnessing consciousness. So the first movement into form is presence. It is the firstborn. But if you trace presence back to its source, there is something even before presence. And this, again, to just be quiet and be still and just contemplate this, not mentally, not by trying to hold on to it or figure it out, but just intuitively sinking into that place of clear recognition. And the moment we're there, it's like a shifting consciousness has taken place. When we have let go of what we're not, and again, we're back in what we are. And there will come a point where we see that we're always that. But because we've been so caught up in the form identity, then we have got to get used to a different position in ourselves. It's like if you shake hands with someone, if you put your hands always a certain way, and then you put them the other way, it doesn't. It feels a bit odd, but then you get used to it. And in this way, you're going to get used to it. And in getting used to it, also you're going to come to love that. You're going to come to love that. Because in one way, you will not be troubling the world anymore. Something in you is going to become very quiet, very peaceful. You're going to be able to see things from all angles. You're not going to have a strong opinions about how the world should be. All of this will fall away. and you're just at peace in yourself. As you begin to see that the thing that is causing all the trouble is the false I, that is the cause of all of the trouble.
So I can say it's like almost like logical to me that I'm the seer, the who sees. It's just, you know.
Yeah.
But yet to be in that place of pure seeing is a complete other jump or dive or whatever.
Yeah.
It fills my heart up when I speak of it.
First stage is a clear understanding in terms of knowledge. You know, it's easy to see that is the truth. But as you have said, there is a difference between just understanding it and consciously being it. They're two very different things. One is a kind of learnt knowledge, and the other is experiential knowledge. And that is why we have to have some kind of deep longing for the devotional aspect, that something inside us just prays for guidance, and that we're able to somehow dissolve the false I into that. So it doesn't just remain as knowledge, like something that we know about, but that something experientially begins to fall away. It's like the false I is thinning out, thinning out, thinning out. Feelings may still be there, emotions may still be there, but the one who previously was joining with them and becoming them, that one is seen through to be the false. That is not the true I. And with that dropping away, then even strong feelings and emotions, even if they're still coming, without identity, they will not have the same pull over us. So something begins to just it's like you're being taken by a completely different energy, and your life is being guided in a completely different way. And very few people are going to understand this. You know, this is not something you can just go out onto the street and speak about. Oh, there's a false I and a true I. You could speak about it, but not many people maybe would be interested in that.
This is not going to make a box office
No.
success. You know, in your own case, you spoke about this experience of presence which came, and there was like a period of immersion, if I can call immersion in it. And then you met Muji, and then there's something more perhaps. It moved in this way.
Yeah.
And I think up to last year, I felt I want to know about the self. Just to know presence is enough. It's enough for me.
Yes.
But that somehow moved because you speak of it so often.
Yeah.
So now we're in this situation where we're kind of moving on both streams in a way, if I can put it that way. I don't know. It feels a bit like that. But it's not even that I feel it's one against the other. It feels kind of just the way it moves.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's kind of natural. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, because back then I would have thought it's just complicating things. It's making things more difficult.
Yeah. I think the main thing is not to come to any conclusions. Don't come to any premature conclusions about anything, which really means just stay open without putting pressure on yourself, without kind of feeling like, oh, I'm not getting it, and I'm just going to give up on that and go back to presence because I can get that, I understand that. It's more like just stay open and just say, let the will of the supreme consciousness, however that's going to manifest in this body, I'm open for the manifestation of that inside me. So I'm not fixing the limits of where of which point I'm going to come to, but I surrender the limits of where I'm going to come to the Supreme Consciousness. And I say, okay, I put it in your hands. Through my own power and my own volition and my own trying, I can only come to a certain point. But I'm not going to fix that point, because I know that maybe that is the furthest point I can come to. But now, with the support of something else, maybe I can go beyond that. I don't know. But now something in you is not fixing it. And something in you is not determining what point you're going to come to or what point you're not going to come to. You are just open. And again, it comes back to that kind of inner prayer of just trusting the consciousness itself. Just giving oneself to the consciousness and almost offering yourself up and saying, look, here, I offer myself to you. I give myself up to you. And whether I'm going to fully recognize this in this life or not, it's up to you now. It's up to you. I present myself. I'm here. I'm available. I'm open. I'm willing. I've said yes. And the rest now, it's kind of like, all I need to do is keep showing up and keep being open. And not fixing anything. Not putting any limitation on anything. And just this openness and this willingness to be not only surprised but almost taken, this willingness to be taken, then this is the kind of thing that is beautiful. You know, because you're not saying, okay, you know, I don't want to be taken and I want to keep my life a certain way. And, you know, no, you're saying, no, I give everything for this. If I have to give everything for this, I give everything for this. You probably won't have to give everything, but you must have the attitude that you could give everything. And it seems almost for so many people that they have got to come to a kind of, you know, a critical limit situation. They've got to come to a situation where, you know, either their health is so challenged, or their mind becomes so distasteful, or something has got to happen, the breakup of a relationship, or just the falling away of life as you knew it, to really give us the courage and the willingness to fully put ourselves in God's hands. But once we do it, we feel, well, yeah, this is a beautiful thing that I've done. But the thing is, we may not get what we want on the egoic level. There's no guarantee that we're going to get what we want. But we begin to see that the one who is wanting all of these things, that one itself is never going to be satisfied anyway. And how this thing even grows in our heart, that we begin to get a love of truth, and that we begin to see through the false eye. How does that even happen? How does that even happen? There must be another power inside us that is working on that behalf. There must be. There must be some other power inside us.
It feels lovely to hold that prayer in my heart.
Yeah.
Is your life? I remember Muji used the phrase "I walked out of my life,"
Mm.
and how is it for you, life? And I don't know how to ask this question really.
Yeah.
Is your life? Is it like in service? Is it? I don't know. Is there Paul one there also?
Mm.
What's it like?
Mm. I mean, if you know me personally as well, and anybody who knows me personally knows that I've just got a completely just natural, ordinary life, and I'm just an ordinary guy who has recognised my nature, and the expression that is coming through this body is just one of naturalness and one of simplicity and one of and at the same point a deep love of God and of truth and of the spirit. So I'm not. It's not spectacular in a kind of fireworks way, but it's spectacular in the kind of ordinariness and the naturalness of what I enjoy to do is a very simple life. That is what I get great enjoyment from that. Now, if you ask me, is your life in service to truth? I say 100%, 100%. And whenever someone comes to one of my meetings, whenever someone comes to some connection with me, to the best of my ability, I will try to help that person as much as I'm able to help them recognize their own deeper nature. But at the same point, I know that it's out of my hands. It's out of my hands. And there was a time where I was feeling very much in service to people, and then I would feel a little bit, upset or something if they stopped coming and all this kind of thing. But now I feel no, you're not in service to people, you're in service to truth. And being in service to truth, then okay, then I'm just here. And one day a lot of people might come, another day no one comes, another day, something else happens. It doesn't really matter. There's a much more of a sense of consistency. And if I had to, I'm spending a lot of time in Sweden, a lot of time in Spain, and if I had to go and live in those places because that was the calling, then I would do that. I would do that because what I've come to see is that the truth can create a life for you that you can't create just from the mind, from the personal eye. And the more one is able to trust that, and the more one is able to be one with that, then you just see the kind of the benefit that brings both to oneself and to other people. And then you just begin to see that there is a greater power in charge here, and that greater power is a benevolent power. It's a friendly power, and it wants our awakening. It wants our full embodied awakening. And in fact, it is going to give us the best circumstances for that. But we have got to let go of how we want it to be. Because if we've still got an idea that no, my life, it has to always, I've always got to have fish and chips on a Saturday or something, then no, you can't. It can't be like that. You've got to be able to throw it all up in the air and just say, okay, I'm here for this. I'm here for this. What I find is that the people that I meet, the people who tend to come to these kinds of meetings, they're people often who have explored a lot of other paths, and they've been through a lot of other, spiritual groups or self-help groups or new age groups, and they've got a lot from that, but still something hasn't quite been satisfied. So I don't want to put it like this is better than or more special than or anything like that. But it's different in one way, because ultimately the one who walks into these meetings shouldn't be the one who walks out. The one who walks into these meetings shouldn't be the one that walks out. And you may when if you come to the point of recognition of this, and this becomes clear for you, then you still carry on, do whatever you like in life, carry on. But the person, your sense of identity, this is what must have shifted. And still, I'm still enjoying, I'm still playing golf. I played golf my whole life. I'm still playing. But there's a very different sense of the one who's playing golf. I'm still enjoying watching football, but the one who's doing it in a very different sense. You could say the intelligence of the being is enjoying golf. Consciousness is enjoying golf.
Is that because I suppose the spiritual teachers I've been through, and I've built up this whole idea of what it is to be in, I suppose, the enlightened state, the no mind state, and we all have these ideas. What is it like? Because I imagine you're swinging a golf club and it's just emptiness, swinging the club, and it's like hole in one every time.
Oh, I wish. Yeah. I mean, I've shared before that there was a time where I was experiencing a lot of bliss, like a lot of bliss, and but all of it, kind of, again, comes back down into a naturalness, and finally, you're just in the natural state. It's like the false I is taken out. For a while, the false I is there, and whilst the false I is there, you need something else to counterbalance that, and to begin to take that out. That is the state of presence. And presence has a kind of feeling to it. When one is in presence, it feels amazing. And there's a sense of Satchitananda, just this sense of joy and quiet bliss. And people love this. But the less the false I is there, then almost, if presence is there or not, it becomes less significant. And ultimately, there is just a recognition that there is something else here. There is something else here which is beyond both the person and presence. But we will not appreciate that, and we will not love that if there's still some false I is there. Because the false I is going to say, well, there's nothing, that's nothing. That's nothing. And from the false I's perspective, it is nothing. But without the false I there, it's just very beautiful. You could say it's even too much effort to get into presence now. No, but I don't want to say that, because at some points also, still, to be in that state of strong presence, particularly if there are difficult situations or something is happening, then again we need that ground. But in general, something becomes completely natural. It's completely natural.
Is it an empty state? Empty?
Yeah, empty. Informationless. Things are functioning. Everything is working by itself, but there isn't a sense of somebody doing it all and working it all out. And okay, when I get there, what am I going to say and what am I going to do? That isn't there.
So no definition of yourself in that way, because that's what the personal self is always looking for, the definition, the image to check.
No. A great relief, and what I would say that the defining characteristic of it, if you want to put it like that, in my own case, is just a very deep-seated sense of peace and silence. Silence is the closest to it, I could say. Just a sense of pure silence. Just a sense of pure silence is there. And everyone else may be excited about things, and it's not like you're not excited, but you know that nothing is going to be what is already here. So these false projections about, next weekend and in a month, and you could play the game still. You can say, oh yeah, that's wonderful, that's good. But you know that nothing can be now. You cannot improve on this. What this is, you can say. And again, not everybody is going to be able to understand this kind of thing. And for some people who know you in a certain way, when you're with them, they haven't seen much difference in you. They'll just speak to you like normal, and you just carry on like normal. But you know that something has been taken out of you, and in that taking out, you are at peace. You are at peace, and life is going to support you to fully live that. But you must say yes to life first. It's like almost like you've got to make the first move. And once you make that move, then life is going to support that.
And that move, saying yes to life, is what exactly?
It's saying yes to the self, to the true. It's saying yes to the true, and just being loyal to that, without waiting, without expectation, without saying, I've said yes to you. Isn't it about time you did something for me now? It's been 3 weeks. No, you say yes because you become a lover of truth. You become a lover of what is, and you know that to go back into the false I, it's just not an option. It's like looking through the bins and eating food that you threw away 3 days ago. No one's going to do that. You become one being who is at peace with himself. And how that is going to manifest, you don't know, and it doesn't matter. You don't need to know. You don't need to know anything. What do you need to know? you know, and you will feel that whatever you're meant to be doing, you will feel a support for that, energetically and by people around you. If you're meant to hold some meetings or something, you will feel a support for that. Many people have woken up to the truth and they're living as truth. They're not teaching. They're not teaching.
Something I wanted to ask you is something about the flavour of how you teach, how you work with people, um, because you very much encourage the acceptance and um, I don't know if perhaps expression is the right word of our human nature,
Yeah.
yeah, and meeting it in presence,
Yeah.
And there's something you said recently about, and I don't know if this refers to this, that you come alive in these moments. I don't know if it was in
Yeah.
this. Something in you is really meaty. I don't know. What is it about this? Because I love this. This to me is a real. It's like healing and um, transcendence at the same time.
Yeah. 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 I think maybe one person came up at a recent meeting and they brought something up, and then I said, I'm really enjoy this kind of interaction.
Yeah.
I think what I can feel from some people when they come up and we have some interaction together is I can feel when they're fully being real. So they haven't kind of hidden away into intellectual understanding, and at the same point they haven't got lost in the drama of their person, but they're embracing the fullness of their humanness, which is all of these, feelings and emotions, and for some people trauma, for some other people just kind of, things that they don't really even understand. But they've opened to it and they've embraced it all, but they haven't identified with it. They haven't said, this is me. And they've just allowed all of that to arise in the open field of consciousness. And for me, the moment I feel someone is there in that way, it's like they're embracing their humanness from the light of their consciousness, then for me, that is the most authentic meeting that I have. I enjoy that because it feels something very real in it. And in my own case also, I've deeply still, some deep sensitivity is in me, and some, I feel things very, very deeply. And so I don't think we can just overlook that. But at the same point, I say it's possible to not deny emotion, and not fully express every emotion, but to invite every emotion into the field of consciousness, to open to it and embrace it and allow it without becoming it. And I feel that this is one of the areas that, yes, something in me feels very comfortable in that area, speaking to people about that, because I've done a lot of that with myself. And at the same point, to point out to them so that they're able to recognize that there is still something inside us which has never been caught inside that. And that is also present now. They're not separate. They're not separate, but without the light of consciousness, the other one can't appear. And most people, they're overlooking the light of consciousness, and then they're fully caught up in all of this kind of emotional stuff. And I say, well, there is another possibility here, and that is to open to it, to allow it, to embrace it, but not to become it. And when someone comes into that, then they're not speaking intellectually anymore. They're not saying, oh, they're not in. They're right in it right now, and they're also open to discovering that there is something else here, which is also right here, right now. And that is what something in me likes that. Yeah. And in general, I have to say, the I've been very lucky with the meetings I have, because the vast majority of people who come to the meetings, they have a real sincerity about them. We don't come and we don't discuss philosophy. We don't discuss kind of mental stuff. I'm not interested in that, and I'm not encouraging that. I'm encouraging people to be still inside their own being and face their humanness from the light of their own consciousness. This is the purest message I can give. And this is, if someone asked me what are the meetings about, if I was to put it in one sentence, that's what it would be. Facing our humanness from the light of consciousness. That was what it would be.
I feel we've covered a lot so far. I'm just looking through my questions if there's anything there that, I don't know, that I feel I want to ask you about. But quite honestly, I feel, something feels complete at this point.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I hope that these questions, I'm sure they will help other people. And very nice that you've taken the time to put these together. You must have taken some time to prepare this, and I'm grateful that you came up with the idea to do this. And so I'm very grateful to you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.